Hello guys and girls, how's it going? Squeezilla here and I hope you're all well. And finally, you join me in the project 1124 Armoured Riverboat Katusha. Yes, we are out on the waters in a Russian boat. Now, I've been doing a few games, just unlocking a few bits and bobs and playing around with the Russian boat tech tree a little bit. And it's one of the harder tech trees to use, actually. The actual T-34 cannon makes this boat very tricky to use because it's a sort of, well, it's a very situational boat. If you can get in the right situation, this thing can be absolutely deadly. But if you're not in the right situation, it's pretty hopeless. As you see there, we've got a good hit on that G5 and take out its bow without too much problem. But the T-34 cannon is really hard to aim because, well, it's not stabilised, of course. Now we've got some torpedoes there. Now this is arcade mode, just to let you know in advance, and this is actually a game on my stream. If you do wish to watch on my streams, please join me on Twitch. Link below this somewhere. You'll find it, I'm sure. So anyway, the Project 1124, the Amurian, it's an interesting boat. But as I say, it's very hard to use. Now, luckily this guy's used his torpedoes. And we have Katyushas. So we'll try and use them. Just blindly fire them into the smoke. As you can see there, hitting with a Katyusha doesn't really do much damage. And, oh crap, there's another one. Well, we managed to hit that guy at least. Yeah, they're very sort of situational sort of weapons. Get a decent hit there again, and again it just doesn't really do much damage, and that's one of the problems with those with that the T-34's gun. It just doesn't seem to do much damage. You'd be better off with the Dushkas on top, in all honesty. I sort of almost feel like you should put the Dushka as your main gun rather than the T-34s. But if you can get a hit with that gun, as I say, you can do quite a lot of damage. It just doesn't feel like you do as much damage as you should do against a sort of very small wooden sort of craft. You know, like post-penetration damage is really weird in this mode, and it just doesn't seem to do all that much damage. And again, the rockets don't really seem to do much either. They're very good for setting fires, though, but they're not great for, you know, killing things. Anyway, the Project 1124 was developed in 1933 for a wide range of battlefield tasks in rivers and waterways. Basically, it's not for high seas, it is for rivers and waterways. Sort of very light, shallow sort of areas, very still water. That's a big thing here. Still water is important. It was a very uncomfortable boat for the crew quarters. It was leading developments in the Soviet industry for the time. The ship builders confirmed that designed for a smaller but well-defended boat with a draft of just 70 centimetres. The engines were from the TB3 bomber. Then it was given the T-34 cannon, a 76mm cannon, 2 Dushkas, and then Katyushas, as we can see. So we're going pretty well in this game so far. We've got 3 kills, 1 assist, and we've captured a base. We're pretty much keeping that base on capture. As you can see here, we're really trying to get those guns on target. And it's really problematic with this gun because it's very hard to aim when you're actually in a boat because it just doesn't loop as much as some of the other shells. You're better off with a high-velocity machine gun. Although, in this situation where it's quite a sort of quite a calm sea, that's the word I was looking for, when it's quite calm, it's actually can be quite useful because, you know, it is a relatively big gun. Again, we'll try and get some Katyushas off on that guy, and it's got behind the island before we can actually hit. And we miss. But it's just very clumsy, and the trouble is like, when you're facing things like S-boats and stuff like that have, you know, rapid-firing 20mm guns and 30mm cannons, although, if you get a shot like that, then it can be quite useful. But when you're fighting anything with high-caliber cannons, you know, good rapid-firing guns, it's very hard to really use this boat in anything other than sort of a defensive role, and you're generally going to get slaughtered. Oh, we've got a G5 behind us launching torpedoes. Let's fire our Katyushas off, and as you can see here, that little tiny boat just took about 5 or 6 Katyushas to the face before dying. Like I said, it doesn't feel very... The damage model and physics in the ships and boat mode don't feel very good. It's still alive, by the way. It's... There we go, we finally managed to kill it. After about 6 or 7 Katyushas and 2 or 3 shells to the face. Now this guy here looks like he's going to ground. Yep. There we go, little tiny G5 has grounded itself. And that one is dead as well. We've got to watch out because we're about to ground ourselves as well, so we don't want to do that. There we go, finally managed to kill it. So just swing around here. Now, because it's got a relatively shallow draft, now, this is what we have to watch out for. These big sort of corvettes, these are very dangerous. Now, this is where your T-34 gun will actually come in very useful. And also Katyushas if you can get them on target. Again, with basically peppering this guy with lots of Katyushas. And we've blacked out 2 of his modules. If we can black out all 3, we can actually kill him. But those things are very dangerous because they've got some very big guns on board, but luckily we get the kill. The G5s are not too much of a threat because they only have a single Dushka on board, which, you know, it can do a bit of damage, but as you can see in this game, I've not really taken all that much damage from them. Whereas if it was fighting the bigger ships, I would really be in a lot of trouble right now. Now, one of the good things about this boat is it does have some armour, which does help you out when you're fighting against people using sort of machine guns, or heavy machine guns, basically, because they're less likely to sort of damage the hull area and your crew quarters. You know, you've got relatively sort of armoured section in the middle here, midship, and of course you've got the T-34 turret as well, which is very heavily armoured. So you're sort of relatively safe in that respect. But if you start fighting anything with larger guns, like this patrol boat over there, which has a lot of rockets on board, so we're having a rocket battle here, and who's going to win, the American rockets or the Katyushas? It looks like the 2 Katyushas have taken the victory there, and that is the 9th kill. So 9 kills, 2 assists there, that's not too bad all in all. This boat is very hard to use in realistic battles. It doesn't shine very well, but in arcade it can be quite fun. It's pretty typical of the Russian boats that are in the game, in all honesty. They're all very hard to use, and they're very situational. There are some of the minesweepers that have some sort of high caliber autocannons on board, and they can be very useful. The biggest problem with this boat is you only have, I think it's 16 Katyushas, and you go through them very quickly, of course. In realistic battle it can be very... it takes a while to get them on target, and again the damage does seem to be very weak. You know, in a tank battle, when you hit a tank with one of these, the tank is gone. Whereas in naval combat, you hit a ship or a small patrol boat with one of these rockets, and you do nothing. And it can feel a little bit wonky, in all honesty. Also, the other issue as well is the Katyushas, as you can see, can't do a full rotation. If we just pause it for a second here, you can see that they can't actually rotate a full 360 degrees. You can only rotate to this point here because of this radio mast, of course, and the crew quarters, the cabin and the deck and stuff. And that means that they're constantly swinging left to right, and it's a relatively slow sort of rotation speed, especially in realistic battles, so it's very hard to get them actually on target. The other thing as well is your tank turret as well has got a very slow rotation speed. It's faster than a T-34 standard, it feels a little bit faster, but you still have problems when you're fighting any fast little patrol boats, and that's where these heavy machine guns come in really useful. And as I say, it almost feels like you should be using them rather than the main gun sometimes, because the main gun does feel a bit useless. It is quite useful for taking out larger targets though, and that's the end of the video. But we'll just head back to the hangar quickly, and we'll just look at it in the hangar view. So, nope, that's the wrong boat. So as you see, this is the Russian Premium. 2.3 as well, which is not a bad BR. Actually, it's been lowered. BR's been lowered because it was 2.7. Okay, so it has been lowered to 2.3. That's interesting. Okay, I'll have to change my plane lineup because I have been doing some balancing on the boats, of course. So yeah, 2.3. That is interesting. All right. Okay, fair enough. So as I said, you have got a little bit of armor, and this armor around here does protect you a bit from those sort of heavy machine gun rounds. Not completely, you know, most of the machine guns are going to be able to penetrate at close distance, but it will give your crew a little bit of extra protection. Also, you know, your engines, which are very vital. Of course, if somebody hits you here, you're going to have problems. Now, you've got extra ammo for your Katyushas, but they don't seem to reload unless you're actually in a cap point. So again, I don't know if that's a bug, I don't know if that's something that's going to be fixed, but it does feel like they should be reloading more. But yeah, I don't know about it. It's just that they don't feel they're not a big advantage on the seas. As I said, you can hit the G5 multiple times, and this thing is tiny and has no armor whatsoever. And if you look at the crew quarters, you know, it's got a crew of 6 people, and they're all in this little section here. And, you know, if you're hitting this section here with a Katyusha, you should be a one-hit kill, you'd think, but no, it doesn't tend to do that. So it does feel a little bit wonky in that respect. But if you do get a good salvo off against some of the larger boats, as you can see, the M13 round, you know, it's got almost 40mm of penetration across the board, and it's got 4.9 kilograms of explosive mass, you know, and that's a very big bit. Yeah, 4.9 kilograms of explosives. You know, if that's a high amount of explosives, and that should really just decimate any boat. It should, you know, any wooden boat, you know, especially, you know, sort of this sort of size, you know, even a sort of, you know, resin cast hull and things like that, it will blow a hole, you know, about the same size of the boat in it. It will probably break its back, things like that. So it does feel a little bit wonky with the damage at the moment, but overall it's not a bad little boat. If you did pick it up, don't worry, you've got a good boat for sort of grinding in. There are much worse boats out there, but it's not as big as advantage as you would think it is. Okay guys, well I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please give me a like, and if you really liked it, please hit the bell for more notifications. And as I said, this was a game that I had on Twitch, so if you would like to see more games from me, or just hear me babbling on about random crap, please join me on Twitch. I'll try and stream at least once a week. Streaming times can vary. As you may know, if you've followed me for a long time, I do have quite a lot of sicknesses going on. So sometimes it can be hard to sort of make a set time, just because, you know, I'll make a set time and then be sick for it, and I don't want to keep having to, you know, put things off and change things. So usually it's in the evening my time, which is usually the wrong time for everywhere else in the world. But if you are awake at odd hours, if you live in Australia, then it can work quite well. Alright guys, well I hope you've enjoyed the video, I hope you have a lovely day, and if you are in the naval test, I hope you're having a good time. Until next time, this is me, Scroozilla, out. Bye bye!